Hey everybody, welcome back to Brownble. Today I'm going to teach you how to make a delicious party treat that is perfect for Halloween, perfect for Thanksgiving, and I'm talking about our pumpkin puffs. They're so yummy. We're going to get started right now. Now for this recipe, you're gonna need some puff pastry. Now most store-bought puff pastry is vegan by default. Just check the ingredients, make sure there isn't any dairy-based butter. And I buy the kind that is frozen. I think it's a little bit thicker and it rises a bit more, but whatever you can find is gonna work great for this recipe. The great news is that now you can even find gluten-free puff pastry. So if you find it and you're eating a gluten-free diet, you can make this recipe too, which is great news, right? For this recipe, we're also going to be making a kind of pumpkin pie filling, if you will, but it's actually going to be a pumpkin pastry cream, and we're going to need some pumpkin for that. And my favorite option is buying the cans of pumpkin. It's not pumpkin pie filling, but just plain old pumpkin in a can, and it's really rich and dense. If you don't have it and you have some pumpkin lying around, you can cook it, of course, and use that. Just make it into a puree and make sure, if you can, to roast it rather than boiling it, because if you boil it, it can get waterlogged and then you can have a watery pumpkin. We don't want that. Now, it's always a great exercise to ask yourself before any dessert recipe, have I preheated my oven, if you're gonna use your oven? So I'm going to do that right now. We're gonna preheat our oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about 205 degrees Celsius. And now we're gonna get started with our pastry cream, because we want that to chill in the fridge while we make the rest of the recipe. And that way it's cold and manageable. So we're going to head to the stove, and I have a medium-sized pot here. We're gonna add half of that can of pumpkin puree. You don't have to, be exactly perfect on half. It's okay. And if you're using pumpkin that you're cooking yourself, it's gonna be a little bit less than 1 cup. Now we're gonna add that in there. We're gonna add some non-dairy milk. I'm using soy milk today. Use what you have. This is going to be our liquid to create that cream. We're also going to be adding some sugar. You can use any type of sugar you like to use. You can use brown sugar, you can use evaporated cane sugar, granulated sugar, whatever you have on hand. And we're gonna add our spices. What is pumpkin pie without its spices? So we're gonna be adding some ginger, some nutmeg, some ground clove, and of course, some cinnamon. Last but not least, we need the thickener for our pastry cream. We're gonna be using either cornstarch or tapioca starch, any type of starch that you like to use and you have on hand. We're gonna add that in. Let's whisk this and make sure that everything is well incorporated, and then we're gonna bring it up to a boil. Now that this has come to a boil and you see that it's bubbling, we're gonna continue to whisk without stopping. So constantly whisk that together, and you're going to slowly start seeing that it's gonna thicken up, it's gonna become glossy, it's going to separate from the sides a little bit, and that means our cornstarch is doing its magic, or your tapioca starch is doing its magic. The texture is ready and your pastry cream is ready when you see that it has this consistency, and when you pull out your whisk, it kind of drops in globs instead of kind of drizzling down. Once it's a little bit cool, we're gonna add it into a pastry bag and pop it in the fridge so that it gets nice and cold. Now you're gonna prepare a shallow baking sheet with some parchment paper and just set that aside. And what I have here is my puff pastry, which has now thawed, and I'm gonna open it up. What we're going to do is cut these. We're gonna have those 2 sheets of puff pastry, and you're gonna need 2 rings, 2 cookie cutters, round cookie cutters or a donut cutter. But for this first one, we're only going to use the larger one. So just make sure to go into the dough, pressing, so try not to move it this way too much. Just press down and lift it up. We're gonna continue until we've used up all of our first dough. Now these circles are gonna be the bottoms of your puffs, and you're gonna carefully remove them and place them on that baking sheet. Now with these little excess parts that you have left over, you could roll them out using a rolling pin, put them together, roll them out, and have some more of these puffs. Just keep in mind that those puffs are not gonna rise as much as these because you're folding and mushing those layers together. Let's pop these in our preheated oven for about 12 to 14 minutes, or until they've puffed up and you see that the top is light golden brown color. Now let's go and prep our tops. So we're gonna use the same size for the outer kind of ring. So we're gonna cut that through our second sheet of puff pastry. And now with a smaller one, look at this is kind of really tiny. We're gonna go ahead and try to place that in the center and cut out the center, kind of like a tiny donut, if you will. Let's continue with the rest of our dough. Our first batch is out of the oven, and can you see how puffy and amazing these look? We are going to place them on a plate or on a cooling rack to let those cool, because we need our baking sheet to add our rings and pop them in the oven. We're gonna place them just like we did before. Now these little cute centers, don't kind of underestimate these. These make a delicious snack. You can actually bake them in with the rings, and you have these little tiny puffs that you can then serve at a party with a little bit of pesto for dipping. Oh my goodness, so good. Now to our tops, we are gonna add some additions. So what I have here is some maple syrup. You can use agave, any type of liquid sweetener that you like. And we just need to kind of glaze that top a little bit, and we're gonna add some crunchy almonds on top. So these are those little bits and pieces of candied almonds that they sell. You can use candied peanuts. Also, you can also just use regular almonds that have been toasted and cut into these little pieces, and then we're gonna pop these in the oven. While our tops are in the oven, we are going to add our cooled pastry cream into a pastry bag. So this is basically just a pastry bag, right? A baggie where you've cut the end, and we're gonna use one of these pastry ends here, pastry bag tips. Now, as the secret to making this simple and so that it's not kind of a mess, is that you actually fold the top like that. You open it and you place your hand in here. That way you're gonna have a layer that does not have any of that sticky filling, and then you can close it up and use it much more easily. So you could actually pipe this now, or you could chill it if you want kind of that temperature of that very cold pastry cream. Now that you've used up all your pastry cream, we're gonna close that very clean end. It's gonna make it so much easier. And we just make sure to push down the filling so that there's no air in there. And we twist, and this is how we use our pastry bag. And it's gonna be so easy. We're just gonna pipe this onto our little puff pastry discs. Our beautiful rings have come out of the oven, and we've got those crunchy almonds on top. So as soon as these cool, I'm going to just pipe on some of that pumpkin cream and then top with our tops. And we're ready. Don't these look adorable? These are a total crowd pleaser. It's a twist on pumpkin pie that people won't expect, and they just look so pretty passed around at a party. And you will need some napkins, and I hope you love them and make them, and you're not intimidated by kind of giving a twist to traditional desserts. Thank you so much for watching, you guys. I will see you next week. I'm gonna dig into this right now because I can't wait. See you next time.